Welcome to the Movement Multiverse. My name is Max and I will be the host for today's episode. The Movement Multiverse is a podcast for movement nerds, curious minds, and anyone who wants to think about movement beyond just the gym. Hosted by Max, each episode is intended to give you a new perspective on movement by exploring movement in all its forms, drawing from science, history, culture, fitness, media, and more. No episode is intended to treat any individual's medical problems, for education and entertainment purposes only. I'm assuming most people who end up in the movement world don't start because they wanted to run a business. They probably started because something about movement clicked. Maybe it was sports, rehab, lifting, hiking. Maybe they had an injury that turned them into an anatomy expert at 2 a.m. But probably at some point a thought probably snuck in. What if I built something around this? And maybe immediately after a thought came to your mind. Do I need an LLC, a logo, a website? Do I need a specific certification? So this episode is not about how to start a physical therapy clinic, which is what I'm doing, or how to start a personal training brand or a hustle guide. It's definitely not how to scale to 7 figures while working 4 hours a week. This is more about how to start a movement-based business. So whatever that means for you, whether you're a trainer, physical therapist, chiropractor, coach, creator, or someone who just knows they want or don't want to spend the next 30 years queuing, keep your core tight without context. So we're going to zoom out before we zoom in. We'll talk about what a movement-based business actually is, what you should consider before getting into this field, and why values matter a lot when your job involves other people's bodies, health, and trust. Also share what I've done so far in building my own business, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as someone who has definitely Googled, am I doing this right, more times than I'd like to admit. So kind of think of this episode as the foundation, because before you worry about pricing, platforms, or paperwork, it might help to know why you're building something in the first place. So this episode is really for anyone trying to start a business as a movement professional, whether it be personal trainer, physical therapist, chiropractor, content creators, anyone who I just mentioned, or whoever else. So hopefully by the end, you'll gain kind of an introduction to forming the initial steps to starting your movement-based business, some actionable steps to take when forming, and then learn what I have done thus far and maybe apply it to your own business. So in order to get there, we'll talk about what a movement-based business is, why more and more people seem to be drawn to this field, maybe some questions to ask yourself before starting, how to develop your values and morals, especially when dealing with people's health, what I ended up valuing in my own business, what clients value, how to form pricing, and then steps I have taken to form my own business, plus the next steps I would need to take. All right, so let's get into it. So I'll give you a little bit of a background of my own business journey. I'm a physical therapy student in my final year. I've always thought of opening my own practice throughout school, and it wasn't until recently, probably about 6 to 8 months ago, that I really started to consider the possibility that creating my own business was definitely something I should be looking into. But I think what's so interesting about the physical therapy field, or specifically, is that a lot of physical therapists will tell you not to start your own business, especially right out of school. Compare that to maybe a chiropractor, where a much larger percentage of students or chiropractors will actually start their business either directly out of school or within a couple of years. So the entire mindset of either physical therapists, personal trainers, chiropractors varies pretty widely across the spectrum. So, throughout our program or my schooling, I've almost constantly been told that waiting to start your own business or getting more experience out in a different clinic is probably the best idea before starting your own place. So I basically came to the idea that starting my own business was the best way I could give into the values that I hold dear, and then being able to portray that with my care. So the pricing, the way I structure the business would reflect what I would want as a patient or what I think clients would value. And then, gaining business somewhere or gaining experience somewhere else doesn't actually mean it's good experience or that you'll actually find the mentor that you're looking for. So you can always grow in any setting. And I just think, the stakes are low right now. And this is probably the best time to at least give it a shot, because as a PT or any sort of movement-based professional, you'll likely have a job anywhere, even if something with your own business doesn't go as good as you wanted it to. So giving it a shot and just putting it all out there on the first try is what I'm doing, and hopefully how I can portray that to you in the best way possible. So a movement-based business is really just any business that's designed with an environment to support human capacity. So how can moving flourish within that business? How do you design the business model that caters to moving and optimal client health and fitness and movement outcomes? It's about helping people move well, safely, and intentionally. So that can very widely across any sort of, profession, whether it be coaching or creating or physical therapy or training. And I think what's super interesting, especially over these past few years, more and more people are drawn to this field. We see that the growth numbers for things like physical therapy, maybe chiropractic or occupational therapy are growing much faster than other fields. So you'll see that the 30-year projections or 10-year projections for our job outcomes are pretty high. So that's why more people are going into the field. Fitness influencing is becoming more and more popular, especially on social media. People, I think, are understanding more the value of moving more often. Even if they're not actually doing it, they're actually understanding the idea of it. And then anyone and really everyone can benefit from movement in some form. You can also pick and choose from one population to another pretty easily. And then when health professionals are really excellent at what they do, they are really highly sought after. So if you're good at what you do, you can create awesome outcomes and really live or the lifestyle you want in tandem with your business. So I was drawn to this field pretty late in the game. So most people would consider late in college is late, especially for physical therapy. But I initially started out in engineering. It wasn't, super stimulating. I didn't love it, but I always knew I loved sports. I always knew I loved exercising. So I didn't actually know physical therapy was a thing until I started to research. And then once around my sophomore to junior year, I actually became really involved in a club that really dove deep into the physical therapy profession and, taught me all about it. I got to meet a bunch of people and it really just clicked. I could give people exercise. I could give the gift of movement to people and help improve their health outcomes without doing any sort of invasive procedure. So that's when I really fell in love with it. Movement is a means to improve someone's quality of life was really what I was drawn to. Strength it was more than aesthetics. It was a way to improve someone's life, whether it be strength conditioning, lifting, whatever, means to achieve that. So lots of different avenues to take to improve someone's health, not just strength. And then exercise improved my own life. So I could share that with others. I could educate them. I could give that to them, especially if they don't have that experience. And then I also value spending more time with someone to help them reach their goals versus seeing them only for, 10 to 15 minutes. And then really in this field, you have endless opportunities for creativity and opportunities to learn more about the field. So if you're really excellent, you start to learn more and more and realize that you probably don't know nearly as much as you want to. So being that lifelong learner, this field is a great option for you. So you've thought about why you've gotten into the field, maybe why you were drawn into it. You've heard why I've been drawn into it. You know what a movement-based business is now. So before you actually go deeper into starting your own movement-based business, I just have some questions that I've thought about and maybe you should think about before starting your own. So what is your why? For me, it was movement can improve someone's quality of life. Strength matters more than just looking good. All these other things can help us feel better without doing any sort of invasive procedure. And then what is your passion? What do you like to spend your time doing? So even though you like doing it, are you willing to put in the extra time to learn, practice, and share this field with somebody? Is financial gain the priority, or is the priority the people you're working with? What do you value in the movement space? What values will you bring your clients, or what value can you bring them? What solutions can you provide to your clients' problems? So maybe most important is that last question. So you need to have a specific skill set that you're really good at or can improve on to improve some sort of problem or issue that your client's having. That might be any sort of business. Identity. So personal branding. Personal branding has been huge over the past few years, especially with social media. It's much easier to find someone's values and what they do in their business from social media. It's often usually the first door people will go through to learn about your business. It might not be the actual selling point or their conversion factor, but at least they might have found your business or they understand a little bit about or what you're about. And maybe they'll be more inclined to share it after they're done with you or as they're going with you to show who you are, your personality, what you value, that you can get outcomes versus maybe somewhere else. So people are usually more inclined to come to the person, so to Max, say, for their movement goals rather than the PT clinic on the street corner just because they've heard it's good. So the person versus the place is much higher regarded usually. So your reputation becomes really valuable when you start to hold these values high. Your professionalism is high. So the cash usually comes when values are the priority. When you make cash the priority, people can usually see that. And yeah, you might make some money, but growing to the place maybe you want to be, that excellent professional, might not happen until you change the priorities. So your ability to display your personal brand can help build that trust and reputation. And then the way to do that is to develop clean, consistent, and valuable branding that opens the door to converting those clients. But it might not keep them, but again, opens that door. So you might have people on social media that you value getting information from. So they provide free value that actually makes an impact on what you think. So how can you provide value to them, maybe whether it's through social media or a workshop or education or talking to somebody that might draw them back to you when they actually need that paid service that you're offering. So does your free value line up with the value you can provide with the paid options? So providing value is a huge part of your business. So let's talk about my own business's identity and personal branding. So my business that I've started to form is Max Mobility Lab. So it's really about it is a place where people can recover, move, and function well. I'm the sole owner and practitioner professional inside of it. So I provide all of the care, the communication, the marketing. But I really try to hold value in the client's eyes where they get value from having longer sessions where they don't feel rushed. They get the outcomes they want by having less visits. They get the autonomy to choose their own path. They get trust. They get honesty. They get fair recommendations, even if it means losing out on some sort of financial gain. So value-based care versus financial-based care is something that I'm trying to portray either in my marketing, my website, social media. So that's something I'm currently working on. Autonomy for the client is super important. So the client should be able to achieve their goal through me guiding them, not by me forcing anything on them. And I think it'll probably be pretty tough, right? So how do you maintain these values, especially when things get busy and you're running every aspect of your own movement-based business? So how will you maintain your values as the owner, marketer, treater, trainer, accountant, everything else? What matters to you if you sought out a movement-based professional? So if you went to somebody, what would you value as someone who knows maybe more about the space and someone who's also working in it? Would you send your own mom to either yourself, or should someone else trust you to send their mom your way to get care or training or whatever it might be? How do you communicate your values so clients understand them before actually starting? Do they understand how they could carry over during their time with you? So could they communicate your values to others, word of mouth, and someone could walk in and know exactly what you do? So being really clear and concise and direct with somebody about your values, or showing that in a way that they understand them, is really huge for these movement-based businesses where people value trust and honesty, especially when it comes to their health. So in my personal opinion, I think this idea or these values and the client being able to choose their own path is really valuable to the client. So it might not mean that the client is coming to you constantly, but it might mean that you could charge higher prices. It might mean that you could build trust through a wider audience. It might mean that you could have more clients come through the door more consistently. So although it might not seem like there could be a big influx of clients initially, as people start to learn more about you and your professionalism and your business and your values, the clientele will eventually come. So by holding your values dear, especially when maybe the business doesn't look like it's earning as much money as you thought it might, really holding your values and capitalizing on those with excellence in whatever you're doing, hopefully will carry over to great outcomes. Just like any other business, you have to set prices. You have to make money to keep the business operating. You have to have a salary. So how am I, as a movement-based professional, as a physical therapy wannabe clinic owner, thinking about pricing so that it reflects my values, but also using words to show why the pricing might be the way it is? So I really want clients to value not being rushed. I value not being rushed. Clients with busy schedules value probably in-depth, intentional sessions. I value being able to prepare more intentionally. I value intention within the sessions, and I value education. So being able to prepare all those different materials or equipment or whatever I might need for a session for somebody is super value to me, and I think also the client. And I think the clients also value choice. I value the client's ability to choose my services with no pressure. So when we're talking about pricing, I think it needs to reflect that. And I think for me, it's going to be a little bit higher maybe than somewhere else. So as a cash-based physical therapy practice, what I'm starting, it takes out the accountability between the patient, maybe their insurance, and then me. By being cash-based, the accountability is just between me and the client. So being the only two people involved in this transaction, it makes it more likely that the session will be valued more. And the way I provide that free value that we were talking about earlier, so that 15 to 20 minute free call where they can ask any questions and learn about what I do or what I could do for them, what sessions might look like, what their plan might look like, solutions I could provide, maybe some recommendations. So again, I'm providing value-based care with honest and fair recommendations without being clouded by any sort of financial gain. So what that looks like is sessions are, for me, are pretty highly priced. They're probably between like $175 to $400 per session, because I'm planning on doing more time-based sessions, so anywhere between 45 and 120 minutes. I'm also thinking about doing concierge services, so traveling to people's homes or where they're at to do this care, offering packages, maybe traveling. I'd be more accessible because I'd probably would be able to have less clients, and then still be able to do the things that I want for them, and also be able to pay more attention to that client, which hopefully in turn results in better care. So I keep saying like these honest recommendations. So is someone more willing to, recommend me to someone or come back based on my honest recommendation from everything I've gathered, either from that call or from a session? So if I think somebody else would, or I think one of my clients would benefit from going to somebody else or going to a different place, I'm going to give them that recommendation. And I think clients are smart, hence, bullshitting them is not really an option. So it really comes down to that value-based care. So providing value either in the form of, for me, it'd be a workshop or accessibility, in-depth explanations, preparation, and answers that really matter to that patient before chasing any sort of dollar amount. So the steps I've taken so far, I've thought about the idea for a long time, and that idea did not just come out of nowhere. I've thought about it for a long time, but without action, this idea did not happen. So I really had to create the conditions. I had to start working on a business plan. I had to start talking to building owners to see what sort of pricing was actually available in terms of like rent, or what sort of spaces would fit my idea of my practice and values. So kind of considering the pros and cons of starting my own practice. Should I join somebody else versus starting my own? Considering my why. Spoken with other movement professionals to form potential partnerships and discover their values, developing a business plan to guide future decisions and put the idea on paper. And then next steps, I'm really thinking about an actionable marketing plan and building plan for the following 9 months. So preparing a website, social media, trust, reputation, building that initial clientele, even if I don't book anybody until 9 months from now. I'm building value for hopefully somebody, either whether it's through workshops or education or social media. So how can I start doing that now before I even start to build that reputation, build that value, and then hopefully succeed in my own movement-based business? So that brings us to the end of the episode. Just a couple quick summarized points. I think clients really don't care about your title or wherever you might have gone to school. I think it's more about what you can give them to get them where they want to be. And a movement-based business is more of a moral system before it's a revenue model. So if you enjoyed this episode and you got something from it, please leave a comment, give us a follow, and thank you for listening.